How we doing? How we doing? Let's see if the extra light helps or makes it look stupid. Close this up. How's that? Look better or worse? I almost like the dark den look. What do we got here? Oh, I don't even play that damn guitar, man. Got a little fruit on the back. Clean up a bit. There we go. We'll go light on for today. See how that goes. Okay. Need to upgrade the camera now. Can you upgrade the camera? All right. What's up, everyone? Thanks for that introductory minute there. We are going to go through a live project that I'm dealing with right now. And I'm going to be showing you how I go through a couple of edits, because going through edits, getting revisions from a client is actually kind of an art and a science. I used to do graphic design for logos and brand kits and things like that. And in that world, you have to deal with a lot of revisions and edits as well. And that one is so subjective. And it annoyed the living hell out of me, to be honest with you. But with custom coded platforms, VI coded platforms and stuff, things are a bit more, you can define them a bit better, right? And I think that there is always a line in projects where it goes from functionally delivering the core agreed upon workflows into just revisions of nice to haves. And so I'm at the point where we're kind of getting to the end of the first part of that section. And we want to make sure that we're building that out and identifying that. We've already done that on this business side of things. But now I have to bring it to a nice close so that we can collect payment and then move into the next phase, which was probably going to be some more development. We have a good relationship with these people, so we'll see how we do that. That being said, what I need to do now is to share with you a screen here about a couple of things here. Now, let me make sure I have no bad information on the board here, and I have everything in the right place so I can basically test everything out, and we can do this together in a nice and proper way. Okay, so everything is good. Here we go. I'm going to share this with you. Okay, sweet. Awesome. This is cool. So what I did is I got this stuff from an email and I copied and pasted it into a doc, just to have it clean and not have an email tab open while I'm trying to be in a vibe. Okay, very important thing in your environment is to get your vibe going well and then put yourself in a good place where you can make changes. So now I have the changes isolated. And now I want to basically make them go. Luckily for me, these guys are pretty intelligent enough to the point where they can kind of have like a bolded headline and then some bullets and stuff like that. Maybe they ran it through Claude or something. That'd be funny. But basically, they've done the work of organizing the types of things. Because in the past, I've had clients where they give you like UI changes intermixed with UX changes intermixed with complete functionality and calculations and logic and a feature and an auth issue. And you have to go there and then authorize it. Or you have to go there and organize it, excuse me. So that becomes its own fucking piece of labor. But luckily for me, these guys did a pretty good job at separating things out. And I've been working on a couple of things here that were pretty simple. And that's when I decided to turn on the camera. So we're going to pick up where I left off and keep going. This whole app is going to be a scheduling tool, in this case for a construction company who will keep private for now, but it's, as you can see, pretty templatable. We can take this organization tool, and then in this Gantt chart, they can go ahead and go through and have a bit more detail into the days, the phases, the details of the job, and so on and so forth. So this is all the necessities for most of the stuff that people are paying like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for on a yearly basis. Especially if you have a bigger team, things like this can cost you tens of thousands of dollars, right? One that I learned about today is called Procore, and apparently it's $30,000 to get just 1 year access to it on the smallest level, or maybe like a small to medium sized level, but still pretty incredible, right? And so my thing is what I do, and you guys can do if you follow this channel and learn from me, is to build out these tools that are solving the more defined problem and then removing all the fluff that other software has that these people don't need, right? If you use Airtable, HubSpot, any big name software, you probably don't use all the features. You use a handful, you use the best ones in your opinion, and everything else kind of confuses you, distracts you, or makes you feel like you're not getting as much as you could from your subscription. And what I want to do is build these pieces of software to help these people. And also because it's fun, it's creative. I used to do graphic design, like I said. I slowly moved into UX, UI design, but I always had this gripe with that space where the UI and UX designers were like more artistic than engineering could handle. And if you tried to think in our engineering terms, you wouldn't really get a lot of those creative ideas to flow. And it was like this real distracted, bifurcated thing. And now it's all in one. So that's why I do this. That's why I really like it. That's how I kind of came into the space. That being said, getting back to this, like I said, it's a very templatable scheduling tool with the ability for Gantt charts to lay out phases and things like that. We're going to use it in dark mode here. And then we have some settings in the background for very basic stuff, users, stuff like that. That's my email if you want to email me. And then we have some different phases specific to this business. Okay. So going back to the changes, we have already done this one here where we are editing, what is it? Clicking and dragging. Yes. Basically, they didn't have this thing in the settings before, this thing with the phases. And so I built it in there so that they can change the order of it. And then you can change the color of it and they can decide what everything looks like and so on and so forth. Okay. So that one's like a pretty easy one. The next one is a date override. This one's more complex. This is just basically a situation where in real life, if you have multiple phases for a job, shit happens. So stuff has to move. And so the question becomes, do you move, just the individual phase or do you move the entire project? And the reality is that it's sometimes, it depends, right? And so we had to build that kind of flexibility in there without letting too many manual movements happen. So there's like potential for just someone not understanding what they're putting into the UI, right? And that's the big thing. Like we can build out the logic, but sometimes the UI is like the bigger gripe, the bigger challenge to get the UI to explain the logic in a way that's simple and straightforward. Okay. Now we talked about this here. Basically just moving certain things from one tab to another because it made more sense logically. Exporting I'm going to deal with later in a second here. Filter dropdown. This is just a bug. And then right now we're kind of working through this one, phase date behavior with project shifts and chart and phase interaction. So a couple other things there, but to state it simply, right now, if you go and input a new job, you have a couple of things going on. You have the details, which is all this stuff here. You have the schedule, which is this individual schedule plus the phases of whatever you need to, whatever you're doing. And then this is something that I just input, timeline for the different phases, and then documents is something that was there before. I don't think I like this timeline. I think this timeline looks pretty bad. And I don't know if you need to have a whole separate tab for it. I think the schedule is kind of asking us to figure out if we want this sort of selector here, or if we want this to be kind of its own thing. So I don't know if I really like this. This is just basically showing things, not really showing like the main deals. Oh, so that's the whole job. And then these are the phases. That makes sense. But it's just really like not well done. So we're going to go into cursor and we're going to prompt this thing because that's the last thing I had. So I'm going to use my whisper flow and we're going to move it in a little bit here. So I don't want it to be in a separate tab. That feels like too many things going on. I'm going to move it right below the scheduler and phase picker and above the working week selector. Then I want it to be full width and I want it to match the style of like no background, clean white font of the stuff above it. Of the other items on that modal screen / section. We're just going to fire it off. We are in agent mode because I'm vibing. I'm vibing, boys. I'm having a good time. I was listening to the music right now, and there's some cool stuff going on in the business. There's a lot of momentum building, especially like on this channel too. We're putting a lot of content out, and I say we, but it's not really a team. It's really just me. But I have kind of like affiliates and some networks and some collaborators and stuff. So it's kind of a we thing, right? And so we're getting momentum, and I'm happy, and so I'm vibing. And this is when I like to vibe and how I like to vibe in the dojo, if you will, with basically these things that you see here on screen, and then something interesting in front of me, right? These are the interesting problems that I can solve in this day and age, and this is exactly what I think that the world needs. While we're here going over this, I want to talk about this to kind of practice talking about this live with you. This is Claude Code Ecosystem. So let me back this up one touch, and here we go. So let me do this, and then we're going to do this. And then while that's going, we're going to talk. So I designed this map after a conversation with Claude that spanned over maybe 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I started the conversation asking about AI agents, right? What is the current definition and deliverable of an AI agent? And that is something that has not really been defined to my liking, to be honest with you. There's a lot of vague overlap, and even the big players in the world are kind of having their own disagreements on what that means. And so why not make my own definition of things, right? But seeing everything that I see, paying attention to the market as I do, this is basically the entire Claude ecosystem. This could potentially even be the entire AI ecosystem in a way. Because if you ask the average individual who's not in this space, head over heels, day to day, like us builders, they're asking someone to implement AI, Claude code, or automation into their business or agents. One of those 5 phases, or one of those 5 keywords is going to be the term that they use to get something in this chart implemented in their business, but they don't know what, because it's not a clean match. Okay, it's not a clean match. Those 5 words are going to be one or a combination of these things that you see here. And so it was important for me to go through this and to map it out in order to make it clear for my clients and for myself and for just anyone that I work with and collaborate with that these are the definitions we're working from. And the thing that you want to build is either going to be in one of these things, a combination of one of these things, or in some form or another, the core idea is going to be explained through one of these things. Okay. So I want to go through it bit by bit and make sure that I'm happy with what it is, and then I'll explain it to you along the way. And for right now, I'm also going to check on this. We're going to do this in the meantime. So the first section is the Claude surfaces, how you access Claude. On the columns, we have product and concept, what it includes, what it's best for, and example use. For Claude chat, this is like the everyday interface, right? This is Claude.com. This chat is pretty underrated, specifically the Claude one, because I don't know ChatGPT, so I'm going to speak to Claude. But this chat is pretty underrated in the fact that it can do all these individual buttons down here, and you can really start to expand with skills, connectors, MCPs, and things like that, what this chat can do. It can plan a weekend for you. It can plan a business for you. It can execute on some marketing copy for you, and much, much more. Also, it's organized. There's ability to create artifacts. There's ability to create projects. There's a lot of ability to basically make this your workspace that you come back to every day, and somehow, some way in your day-to-day, you can have this tab open and it will help you be more productive. This chat is great. It is probably 60 times more powerful than the average user uses it to be. But that being said, a lot of people just don't want it to be this simple. That sounds weird, but a lot of people don't want the thing that they implement into their business to just be a separate tab. They want it more integrated, more implemented, and stuff like that. And in some ways, they can do that, and it is the right move, right? So coming back to our chart, one way to do that would be Claude API. And this is basically taking the same power of the chat and the LLM behind it, the engine behind it, and allowing us to query it, allowing us to ask the same type of questions or get the same type of information from that chat into someplace else. That can be for a specific automation. That can be for a specific user interface. That can be for a specific task in some form or another, okay? The next one is Claude Cowork. This is something that if you've heard of OpenClaw, this is basically the same function in Claude's own ecosystem. I have been waiting for Claude to come up with something like this. I have been waiting for Claude to come up with something like this. It is literally as simple as downloading the test desktop app for Claude and then putting this navbar over to the Cowork section. In there, you can work within your files. Yesterday, I was having it organize some things within my downloads files, or you can have it do things in the browser extension if you combine it with Chrome, which I think personally is the most powerful thing that it's use case right now. Yes, you can do things on your computer, like create documents, create presentations, create summaries of files and organize files and things like that, which is super easy admin work that can get you a lot of stuff out of the way. And that's awesome. But the amount of admin work that also requires some browser navigation is much more. And so having that ability, combining this with the next item, next item of Chrome is making it super, super powerful in my day-to-day. So as you know, I use Upwork as a source of jobs and places so I can make proposals and get some projects. What I did is here, search Upwork for automation AI jobs with my list of criteria, and I can put this on a schedule. So as long as I have my laptop open, this thing will run, and every time I want it, it'll go through and pre-search things in the ways that I like it already. And so far, it's actually been really working and giving me some nice, sweet jobs. So it's been a really, really cool thing to do. And Claude Cowork is basically covering the same things as Claude OpenClaw. Basically the same things as OpenClaw in the sense that OpenClaw has had this huge hype because it's been able to do things on your computer and also autonomously while you sleep. The autonomous part is actually something that brings me more concern, that makes me more excited, because a lot of people have shown me their receipts and their token cost has gone out of control. I'm not a fan right now of giving complete autonomy to any agent or workflow or anything like that. I like to have some stop gaps just in case there's some billing errors, right? Just in case it goes to the point of doing as many actions as it can to accomplish the goal without the actual billing being taken into account, right? That being said, Cowork does accomplish most of the things that I want, even if I have to have my laptop open in order to do that, and it's not doing it while I sleep. I think it's still super effective, and the use cases for it are starting to climb in my mind. So I'm pretty excited with that. Claude Chrome is the same thing that I was just talking about. As you can see here, I have an extension with Claude, and I can basically have this thing navigate across my browser. And this is great because you can basically use Cowork from here, or this is exactly what Cowork does. So if you type it into Cowork, it'll go ahead and open this if it requires a browser. If you're on the browser already, you open this up and you put something together. You can basically save the task, converting it to a task, and then putting it into Cowork, and you can just redo it as many times as you'd like on a schedule. So those two are basically working in tandem, in my opinion. I don't really understand, other than doing like file organization, I don't really understand the use of not having them together. And if you're going to have one, have the other, you'll really get the most power for your punch out of it. Okay. Last major platform here is going to be Claude Code. So Claude Code, if you've ever seen it, is basically a way of, let me just close this for a second here, but Claude Code is a way of using code. So if I do this here, I'm going to go to Claude. This is Claude. So Claude Code is basically a terminal that you can use inside of an IDE like Cursor or VS Code, or you can use it directly in a terminal like such. If you type in terminal, you'll see a terminal like this. You can use Claude Code within here to make portals, apps, and all types of custom software. It's basically essentially another interface and another way to access Claude. I still do prefer Cursor at this point because of the ability to control it. I've used the interface so much that I've just felt like I have more control over it. And this here sometimes feels like I'm a bit more in the weeds of a terminal rather than like a nice interface to interact with it. I have heard arguments that it's better in terms of just raw coding capability. And I would say that that's yet to be seen for me, but there still is some more testing to be done. And honestly, at the end of the day, though, if it's going to be the difference between getting something done in a way that's smooth and easy, I'm going to optimize for that versus raw power. The types of things that would need that extra raw power would be probably very complex builds where you're having like two-way sync or multiple database synchronization or multi-user authorization, things like that. Stuff that for the most part, Cursor can still handle, but maybe in some use cases, some just raw power can be in Claude Code. That being said, I will say that the interface is decently enjoyable. It's a nice flow, but as far as like my working projects right now, I'm not using it day to day. It's something that I've been incorporating a bit more just to see if it does help in a way that Cursor can't solve for me right now. But I've been happy with Cursor. They put out a lot of updates and things like that. But if you're curious, I might go ahead and drop like a full file on this. Okay, so those are the main things of Claude. That is the entire Claude ecosystem. Now, that is not the entire AI ecosystem, but the Claude ecosystem covering a lot of AI functionality. And this is where it gets vague. This is where it gets confusing and overlapping. And so I'm going to do my best to try to help you understand where things actually fit in and how you can go about choosing the best tool for you and your build or a client if you're building for them, as well as explaining things to people so that no one just gets overwhelmed or expects one thing, you're using another, or for whatever reason just causes a problem. So before that, I'm going to go back here and check on my old folder. I'm going to close this up if we just opened it, and then I'm going to go back into Docket Glean. So Docket Glean has basically made those changes that I was looking for. I'm going to make sure my local is still running over here, and then we're going to check it out. Got to open my local one more time. And there we are. Okay. So I asked it basically to combine those two different views. And here it is, basically combining those. But I want this to span the whole thing. And I want to make sure that it looks good in both places. Yeah, so it does look good in both places. So I'm getting different size views. So we're going to talk about that. I'm getting different scale views in the new input modal. The timeline is halfway. I'd like it to be the full width of that modal. In the edit schedule view, it is sometimes overextended past the width. Try to keep it consistent to the full width of the existing modal. Hopefully that was clear. All right, so we're going to move this down. We're going to move this, close this, close this, close this, close this, this. Try like to keep things simple. And then we're going to go back to this over here. Okay. So the next couple concepts are going to be things that Claude has kind of created a, not monopoly, but a monopoly on these terms: projects, skills, connectors and MCPs, memory and context. And some of these are actually native to Claude, and some of these are just concepts that are out in the AI world. So projects is specifically something that you'll use in Claude. This is the screen of creating a personal project. I'm going to just type in a test, and then it's got a description here. You create the project, and what you're going to be able to do is to give it memory, instructions, and files. Then you can have multiple chats within that. And if it's needed, it'll go ahead and refer to those files as a database of sorts. The files in memory work kind of similarly. The instructions are specifically what to do about what you have in the files in memory, right? And this style works well when you want something to be answered and you want this optional stuff here. Unless you want it very strictly doing it, you'll have to define that in the instructions. Every single time you query it, you have to, in a certain way, access these files and pieces of memory. This is something that's kind of like a custom GPT with the ability to pre-write the prompting skills, pre-write the prompt and the answers, and then also inform it with the memory and the files. I think it's also something that's underrated. I think this is also something underrated because I have a couple of side projects, and before they would have been lost in like a few chats in just the main chat window. But with the ability of projects, I'm able to consistently come back to them, add new threads, but have them in one nice place. And it's better than just starring them or even just normal folders, because you can also add in PDFs and different things like that from the files and memory section in order to basically fuel the brain behind your project builder, plan builder, constructor, whatever you want to call this. Next thing is skills, which is something, again, that has been kind of created or, really taken by Claude. But if you do a backslash in this chat here, you have some skills. One that I've been using is Canvas Design. And all these skills, what they do are kind of like pre-written projects or pre-written prompts, to put it very simply, but they're instructions and pieces of data and examples on how to go about a specific process, in this case, design. So I've been using this whenever I want to create like a deck or some kind of presentation or some kind of visual map. Specifically, the one that I'm showing you now was made by using that skill as well. And these skills can also be found in Claude Code or in Cursor. If I go over to Cursor, and if I do this, going into a new chat, and I do a slash command as well, you have their own version of skills. So this is what I mean by Claude has kind of taken monopoly of this. But if you hear skills, the concept has gotten so popular that a lot of these builders and tools are going to have something similar to this. And similar to what I'm showing you now, they have the ability to add more, whether they are native or they are through some sort of marketplace. You can find skills that are pre-written and then basically help you with your build. Let me close this up though. And I think we are good. I forgot which one I was doing right now. Yeah, this one's not it. And we're going to go back to this. There we go. Okay. I think I like that for now. I'm going to finish up with this Claude content because I'm going to flow, and then we're going to come back to this, but I already have like my next thing. Connectors and MCPs are one and the same in a way. Basically, this plus button down here is going to ask you if you want connectors, and then to manage those connectors, you go in here and you do the same thing as you would assume. You manage things that connect different tools, in this case, to chat. MCPs are similar to this, but they're doing it within code environments like IDEs or Claude Code. And MCPs are something that technically it's just a format. Technically, it's just a way to go about creating that connection. And so it's same as some companies have better API docs and worse API docs, and some that are built or not built. That's how it is with MCPs. Individual developers have to go and build those for those softwares, and then that allows for different things to connect. Again, a concept that you would use in Claude, but also other places. Memory and context, as you know, is just what it sounds like. Context for the question. And context is a huge deal in AI prompting, because if you have not enough or too much context or not enough or too much memory, the response quality goes down. So that being said, we can talk about how to use context, when to do context and when not to and stuff like that. But for the most part, as you can tell, it's just context for the question that you're asking or the task that you're asking getting done, regardless of platform, whether that's Cursor, VS Code, Claude, ChatGPT, or anything like that, okay? So now we're moving into other concepts that have a little bit less direct access, a little bit less direct overlap to Claude, and are more general concepts. The first one is going to be automation. So automation is kind of this general idea, but when I mean this as a noun, not automation. Automation in the AI world means a workflow. Inputs and outputs. Put very simply, AI is a more ambiguous form of automation. AI has to interpret normal language in order to come up with the automation. But an automation, in this sense, can be a make model, can be a make scenario, can be an N8N scenario or a Zapier scenario. Also, within certain softwares like Go High Level automations, Airtable automations, and others, you can automate very specific inputs and outputs. And I actually like automation for a lot of use cases that people think they need an agent or an AI for. And we'll get into what that means, an AI and an agent right now, just as the next thing. But automations are the simplest form of very predetermined workflows and predetermined inputs and outputs. And this covers a lot more than you probably expect, especially if you've just gotten started to the AI world. AI agent to me is something that is basically an automation with an AI decision made inside of it. And so what I mean is that if you're making a make scenario, you also have a module tapping into an LLM within that. And then that has a series of instructions that basically tells it how to continue or to decide the routing of the rest of that automation. So there is a little bit of ambiguity. There's a little bit less of a perfect yes, no condition and a variable condition, a variable like percentage chance calculation going on. And that can be good in some cases when you're doing things that are a little bit on the more difficult side, but that can be not so good when you want something that's consistent. This here is an example of something that I built that has an automation step within it. This essentially is an AI agent. If you want to get more technical, the way that Make defines it is that it's a step with its own context and its own set of instructions. But that basically to me means the same thing as having an LLM module with the context for the agent, the tool, and more. So an AI agent is just that. It's an agent. It's a step within a workflow. In most cases, that would accomplish what people want with an AI agent, a small step in the workflow. Now, I do want to show you some other examples of agents being used as a piece of as a terminology. I do want to show you another area where the terminology of an agent is created. So this here is cursor, and as you can see, it's asking me if I want to set up a new agent. And in this case, it's basically just a new chat. So anything that gets done close this. There we go. There we go. So as you can see, if I hop on the cursor and I click on new agent, it opens a new chat. So this is a different definition. And again, I don't think it'd be totally wrong, but you want to make sure that you're talking very specifically with your clients or your team on what you mean by agents. Because agentic and agents and AI agents and stuff, all those words have kind of blurred together. But I think if you think about it in this way, where it has a little bit of decision making to do, it's taking over a little bit of human decision making, and it's not pre-wired and predetermined with hard conditions. If it's doing something, a bit of a mental calculation, if it feels like it's using intelligence, that's something that's agentic, that's an AI agent, that's an AI workflow, that's the agentic workflow structure. Okay, we can put it to rest. Multi-agent, very simply, is multiple agents talking to each other either sequentially or all at once. This is a huge debate on the best way to structure things, whether you do them like as a egalitarian group, or if you do a leader, or orchestrator, and a couple other subordinate agents, or whatever other combinations you can think of. But that's essentially what it is, multiple agents. Orchestration is what we just talked about, where if you do have multiple agents, you're orchestrating between them and the individual tasks among them as well. RAG is basically a system of tapping into a knowledge base and being able to small chunk the information in that knowledge base to retrieve it in a way that's kind of like an index. It's essentially doing it in the most efficient way possible. But it's similar to a chat and an LLM. You can also think of a chat to a RAG system. Human in the loop is having a human there to basically look over all the output. Well, it's having a human there to look over the outputs. A lot of times there's going to be some debugging with these sort of things, and then the output quality is going to be heavily dependent on humans. So you want to make sure that you have these people ready to check on these processes, especially in the very beginning while these things are ramping up and while you're looking over quantity and while you're looking over the quality. If it's something creative, like a piece of visual media or a piece of copy, you're going to want to make sure that you do that, once over, twice over, just to check that there's no weird hiccups, like something just not in your voice or a weird reference file or one of those pieces of text that says, would you like me to do this again? Would you like to run another prompt? Something that looks like you're talking to AI. So human in the loop, very important, especially at this stage. Now, last couple of things here just to cover our ass, basically. Last couple of things here just to cover any remaining holes and gaps. Make, Zapier, and N8N are the tools that I was showing you earlier that you use with different modules to connect across tools. This is what I call external automations, connecting across different tools, not taking one like a CRM and creating automations within there like lead nurture, but connecting across tools like a CRM, a project manager, a form, your email, and more. And what you use to build that is Make, Zapier, and N8N. Airtable and Notion, as you know, are their own standalone software. But when it comes to the automation and AI world, these are very common places to have the interface, right? Not everything deserves a custom interface, or you're going to spend all day overcomplicating and overcoding things. Some things can just be built off of Airtable or Notion, specifically some content production machines or some content calendars and publishing tools and stuff like that I've created through Airtable and Notion. It saved a lot of people a lot of time and money, and me as a builder some headache. Supabase is the back end for a lot of these things, and this is specifically why you want to go for Airtable and Notion sometimes, because Airtable and Notion have an element of a database within them, and you don't have to go all the way to something full blown like Supabase. Supabase is a very powerful database structure that you use on top or underneath code. It's a structure that you use underneath code to support any information that you're inputting, like individuals, pieces of data, in our case, projects, and more. Then second to last, we have Cursor and VS Code, which are IDEs, as you've been seeing all night. It's a place where you can go and basically talk to a prompt in this case, or even use the terminal of Claude. And once again, it's an IDE. Once again, you can totally use this without going into the Claude world, but if you want to combine the two, you can do that as well. And last, we have Vercel, which is a very common site that you would deploy these things by getting a domain, like a link in a URL. So anyone in the world can go and tap into that URL and then use the thing, which is obviously going to be the case because a lot of times you guys are working with digital businesses or you're building for people that have lots of team members and they want to access it. So that's the whole breakdown. That's a whole ecosystem of Claude. And if you know a lot more than your average person. And if you can basically keep these things in check when you're consulting anyone or deciding something to build and how to build it, you will save yourself a lot of headache by choosing the right tool from the get. And here's the thing too about this space is a lot of people are overbuilding. A lot of people are building things that are just way too complicated when it can be accomplished by something simple. And this is the reality of having hype in AI and stuff. And it's great. In some ways, I think it's great because we're all exploring. We're all trying to get the most out of these tools. We're all connecting wires and tinkering and stuff. And I love that energy. And I think it's good. But if you're a business owner and if you're looking for revenue, if you're looking for sales, if you're looking for saving time, if you're looking for avoiding to hire someone, you really just want to know the lay of the land and then get something done and implemented. So this is a nice thing to go over and use as a reference to decide how to build something. And also, it's a good thing to use for checking someone to understand if they understand AI. Again, I stand by this. If you use this document and I stand by this. How would I say this? I stand by this. I stand by this. This document will show you 90% of what people mean by implementing AI or Claude code into their business. This is the main source. This will show you exactly what people are talking about when they say, I need AI in my business. Most people don't know, and that's totally fine. If you're on this channel, you're learning for yourself and you're trying to help other people possibly. So use this as like a definition or a quick reference guide to help you grasp all the concepts that you need without getting overbloated into other things. Yes, there are other tools, Yes, there are basically things that do the same thing, but once again, there's always going to be like a Ford and a Chevy, and this is the Ford and a Chevy over time. We have Claude and Anthropic, we have OpenAI and ChatGPT. I think for me, I'm a pretty strong Chevy guy in this case, and actually my first truck was a Chevy, so this is where we're going to go. And if you want to use AI in your business, refer to this map, let it help you. Okay? If you want to learn more, also check out my school. I'll be going through this stuff in depth, showing you projects, showing you the use cases and everything that you would ever, showing you basically how to put this stuff into action, right? Love to see you there. Okay. So getting back to the main thing at hand here is a couple more steps of doing cursor, and we're going to be at a place where we're going to be able to send this thing off. I'm going to look at this one last feature, to be honest with you. I just talked myself into some hunger, so I'm going to take a break, and then we're going to go forward. One last thing that I want to do here is change this outline, because this blue does not match any other blue. I want it to be like a more of a neutral color. I might actually just make it white so that it's like very clear and obvious that it's a neutral color. So let's go here, and we're going to go back to our conversations. You can go to, where'd it go? If I go here, remember I used to be able to close this. Oh, I thought I used to go to my old chats. What's this? Nope. I know there's a way. Oh, this is my old chat. Okay, cool. So for the main job bar on the Gantt, make it white. For dark mode, black font, and opposite for white mode. Got to be careful to always do light mode, dark. Not always, but in a lot of cases, it's just safer to do it. So that's good. We're going to take that as a W. This went on longer than I thought it would, to be honest with you, and I ended up talking about the other stuff. But that stuff to me is like the more important for you as a viewer anyways. This is me just kind of putting it into practice, putting some into practice, and then going through to UI. So it's honestly, I took this opportunity as a way to kind of like film that video and stream live at the same time. If you're watching this later, maybe just watch the edited video and that would help you. But that being said, let me just make sure this thing goes. We're going to cut this off. Unless someone joins in the next 2 minutes. Oh, someone did join in the next 2 minutes. I was just saying, man, I was about to kind of switch over topics, but welcome to the chat, my guy. If you want to comment or anything like that, we're just going through a couple of basically edits using cursor from a live project. This is a live project. That is not what I wanted to do. That is not what I wanted to do. Oh my goodness. Let's go back here. My boy left me. It's okay. It's okay, buddy boy. It's okay. It means we're going to go and we're going to chill. Come on, make this, make this, make this, make this. How we doing? How we doing? How we doing? Yeah. Fuck yeah. Okay, cool. All right, that's it. Hallelujah. Stay blessed. Love you. Peace.